Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack and this is a lovely British summer's day. This is going to be quite an important test because, as many of you know, I recently bought, a couple of months ago, a Bentley GT. That was never going to be a long-term purchase. I'm going to have to replace it with something in a month or so when I put it on sale. And this might be the car to do it. I've always loved these and they are also unbelievable value. In this video, I'm going to make a decision whether I'm going to buy one or not. The story of the XK is an interesting one because it's almost a car that never happened. Bizarrely, although the chassis itself is based on that of an old Jaguar, the XJS, the XK owes its existence to an Aston Martin, the DB7. How on earth did that happen? We're going to take it out. I'm going to tell you more about that story. I'm going to tell you how it drives and how it compares to its more expensive Aston brother, the DB7. That does sound good. Unfortunately, not a great day for it. First thing I'm going to do, DSC off. It's in sports. And let's go. Lovely, lovely sounding engine. Let's start with the story of how the XK came about. Now, Tom Walkinshaw in the 80s raced with quite a lot of success in Group A, the XJS. So he was quite fond of that car and he thought it had potential to be further developed. He did approach Jaguar about that at the point, I think, when they were starting or already owned by Ford, and they weren't really interested. So he then went to Aston. His proposition was use the XJ platform, just change the rear suspension, use the XJ40, the upgraded rear suspension, and you're going to have a competitive car. So the DB7 was born from that concept. When Jaguar saw that and saw that the car could be made relatively cheaply because they were, as usual, very short of money, they decided to go ahead. So the only reason that this exists is down to the Aston DB7. Now the DB7 came out initially with a 3.2 litre supercharged Jag inline 6, then the V12. The V12 is the version that we'll be comparing it to because in terms of performance they're about the same. The 3.2 straight 6 only had 320 horsepower. But oddly, on the second-hand market, there's not much difference, I don't know why, between the 3.2 and the V12 DB7. It feels muscular, it's got loads of torque, I love the sound of it. Throttle response, it's quite nice and sharp, despite the gearbox. These later cars don't have the Merc gearbox which blighted the early cars in terms of reliability. They were quite problematic. The 4 litres also had timing chain issues and the Nicosil liners. So ideally you want, and I would want, a later car. There is a big problem here though, and that is that, for me anyway, I'm 6'1". It's too cramped for me. I'm quite shocked by that. The XJS that I drove, I think was better than this, if that's possible. I don't know how that is possible, but the problem is that I can't stretch out my legs. I'm as far back as it will go. Normally that isn't an issue if they're, if my knee's coming up because there's room to move it around. Here there isn't because the transmission tunnel is just there. On the right, it's not so bad. But the steering is way better than you would give it credit for. There is a little bit of feel there, but it's also nicely weighed. It's light, but not overly light. And it's really precise, which kind of makes it quite fun. Because today it's wet, I can't really make the most of the grip, so it won't be showing the big limitations that this chassis has, but I know that the DB7 is a more planted car. Having said that, if you have a big GT like this, it's not, it's not a scratcher, it's not a car you take out for like a blast down a a B road, I don't think. It's mostly its role as a GT that you'd want it for, and in that way, perhaps the setup on the XKR is more suitable than the one on the Aston. The brakes are great, lots of feel, not overly trigger happy, that pedal. It does go, and pretty good traction for a day like this. I'm really quite surprised. Maybe the torque converter gearbox is blunting it to an extent as well. But it kicks down pretty quick, it goes. It's an old style gearbox, but if you know its limitations, it's really not bad. Let's try and do another pull here. Can we do it in one? Yes, we can. Right, foot to the floor. Let's see what happens. Okay. Oh, lovely. So a gigantic amount of wheel spin there, which I didn't try and stop. And then eventually it got its grip again. Gearbox sorted itself out, and then it went forward. The way it handles and the way it turns, it's all quite harmonious. So although certainly in the dry, I'm sure it would wallow and lean too much, on a day like this, you can kind of move it around close to the edge of traction, and it dances around really, really nicely. It's such a shame about this driving position, because I don't know. I'll make a decision by the end of the test, but could I live with this? I'm not really 100% sure, to be totally honest. Now, between this and the DB7, what would you pick? Well, at launch, the Aston was a third more expensive if you compare it to the V12, which you have to in terms of power. I think in terms of performance, they're pretty similar. They're quite on a par. The interior on this, I much, much prefer. The DB7 interior is not to my taste. I think this is better laid out, better organised. I think it looks better. And when it comes to looks, the DB7 was a pretty car. But I'm not totally convinced about the back end. So the front ushered in the new era of Astons. I think the problem that you have there is that the later cars hardly cost anything more, and they look loads better. They drive better as well. This, on the other hand, has, to me, retained more of that old world charm. The looks, the design has aged better. It still looks absolutely fantastic. It doesn't look like it's aged at all, to me. It's a great reinterpretation of the original E-Type. In terms of prices now, it seems that the DB7, although a real bargain by Aston standards, is still almost double the price of one of these. You can get, it would appear, a decent one of these for 10 or 12, and you'd be looking at 20 and over for a DB7 V12, which is the one I'd want if I had to get one. So if it was down to me, I think this is the better car. The Aston, yes, it's got more planted handling, but I'm not really sure how beneficial that would be in everyday use. I think I'd prefer the more relaxed attitude. Also, the V12 Astons, the DB7, if you're going to get one then for the handling, well, you'd want the manual, and they're very, very rare. The vast majority seem to be autos. I think we've come to a decision time. Would I buy one of these? If I was a couple of inches shorter, I definitely would, but there simply isn't enough room, and I'm a little bit heartbroken because I love it. The engine is so muscular, it sounds so good, it looks so good, the interior it's charming, and they're a bargain, they're a real bargain. But I think it's just too small for me. I keep trying to think, could I live with it? Come on, I'm trying to convince myself I could live with it, because it would be a great replacement for the GT. I'd free up a bit of capital because it costs less. it's still, you know, I like these English cars which feel English, you know, with the leather, the way this is set out, you know, the Britishness of it, but I think it's just too much of a compromise. It's my left leg just has no room whatsoever. Tell me what you think. I suppose I could go for an XJR instead. That's more roomy, but I don't really want a big saloon, and I guess that's my only option. If you have any other ideas on something I could get which would do the same role, same sort of money, then please let me know. If you want me to do a review on your car, please contact me either by email or on Instagram. Thank you all so much for watching. I really look forward to seeing you for the next video. Despite the conditions, I've thoroughly enjoyed today. I really like this car. Thank you and see you soon.